Argentina could become the first team to win back-to-back World Cups since Brazil in 1962. A campaign marked by historic comebacks, a lot of overcoming adversity, and of course, individual brilliance, especially Lionel Messi's brilliance. I'm here with Pedro Werneck, who's been investigating, has already talked to a lot of people, trying to understand how Argentina, with this title-winning generation from 2022, but now older, managed to get where they are. Werneck, talking to journalists, to experts from the Argentine press as well, and looking into the numbers, what were you able to find out to help us understand this issue, man?
Yeah, Argentina, the fans, the team, they're always very optimistic. It's a characteristic. They always give off this idea that they're very confident, that they knew they would go far. But the journalists, when we talked before the World Cup, were pretty pessimistic about this team. I wouldn't say pessimistic, but it was kind of an unknown, especially because, like you said, it's an aging team, right? The average age of this squad is over 30 years old. The starting lineup is really aging. Aging because they're the same players, right? 17 of the players who were called up in 2022 are also here now. So Messi, for example, was 35 years old, now he's 39, and many others like Otamendi, who ended up becoming a substitute, but he's also turning 40. So the big question was, can Argentina handle it physically? And then talking again with those same journalists now, with Argentina in the final, their response wasn't, no, they proved us wrong. No, actually it was, no, but Argentina is struggling with physical issues. That's why they had a hard time beating Cape Verde, Egypt, and now England in a tough game. That's a main reason, since this team, especially Messi, often has to pace themselves, with Messi being one of the least active runners in the World Cup. So he needs to pace himself throughout the game so that in the end, he can make the difference when it matters most. But Argentina compensates for these physical issues with grit and determination, which we're used to seeing. Yeah, and it's a team that really has become like a family, right? So they've already been playing together for 2 cycles in a row. They have total respect for the coach, for Messi. So it's a team that didn't come in at its best. Maybe the best version was really in 2022, right? That was a stronger team with Messi in better form, but this one overcame all these challenges to reach the final. The campaign is symbolic, right? Every game was a battle. Every game was won by the finest of margins. So this isn't an Argentina side that steamrolled everyone, but once again, they're in the final. And we hope they don't match that Brazilian achievement, the first team to win back-to-back titles since 1962.
You touched on an interesting point, which is talking about a team that became like a family. And I was going to ask you about that, right? Is the secret of this team in the tactics, in what Scaloni plans on the spreadsheet, on the tactical board, or is it more about the barbecue, right? We know Scaloni has already talked about this, right? That many times he chooses moments like that, right? When the players get together and spend time together even more than in training sessions. What did Scaloni achieve in terms of not only tactical organization, but also team building, squad formation, creating the right environment, right? Is that being reflected on the field, Werneck?
Right? Scaloni clearly does a great tactical job, otherwise he wouldn't have come this far, right? And this Argentina side already shares several traits with the 2022 team. A side that likes to keep the ball and move it around, even to conserve energy. If we spent all our time chasing the opponent, Messi and everyone else would get too tired. This team prefers to keep the ball and pass as well, which Scaloni often mentions. He said, I became a coach because I like the 4-3 and the 4-2 formations. I became a coach to have barbecue with the players, to play cards, to be part of the stories so that in 20 years I can remember this squad, our relationships, the friendship I have with this team. And that really shows because, as Scaloni says, and as we've seen with several other champions, including Brazilian ones, the World Cup is very exhausting, right? It's about 30 or 40 days of total mental and physical exhaustion. And if between games you only talk about tactics, you only train hard, you can't handle the pressure. So he really insists that for this team to endure, this aging team, to be able to give their best in the games between matches, they need a barbecue. Sometimes they need to shorten practice so they can play truco. So it's really something that, of course, says a lot about Scaloni, about who he is, but it's also a tactical decision, right? It's about not wearing themselves out too much between games so that during the matches, the players can perform at their best. Yeah.
Man, like Argentine barbecue is undeniably great. Argentine barbecue is really good. Now, what's getting more attention, in my opinion, than the Argentine barbecue itself is what Messi is managing to do at 39 years old. You've already talked more or less about his importance within this squad, right? But it really stands out when we even look at the statistics, right? Messi is running about 6 km per game, right? He's covering a little over 6 km per game, which in modern soccer is a low number, right? Even for an attacking player anyway, it's a much lower number than what we see from other players in the same position, both in distance covered and overall output. What's Messi's secret in the 2026 World Cup? How is Messi managing to do all this at 39 years old and running less than 7 kilometers per game?
I think even Messi's biggest fan doubted that he could perform at this level in 2026. And I say this because Argentinians told me the same thing. Even the Argentine players had doubts about whether he would be a starter, if he could handle playing 90 minutes. But he not only handles 90, it's 90, then 120, then 90 again, and always making the difference at the end of the games, right? What stands out the most is that he should be worn out, but he manages to control his energy so well that when it comes to the end, when we need a result, he gives his best, which is what he's done his whole career, right? We know this since his time at Barcelona. That's Messi, pretending to be out of the game at certain moments. He spends 20 minutes there without overexerting himself, catching his breath and moving around so he's ready to make a difference when the ball comes to him. Really, he doesn't run much, but he runs when he needs to. And I think this shows us a lot that besides physical ability, for a player to play so well close to 40 years old, he needs to be smarter. And Messi has always been like that, right? Sometimes more important than physical preparation is the player who reads the field, manages energy, and knows when to give his best. That's how he's getting there, but Messi said in a post-game interview that it's getting harder for him and he's getting tired. It's a challenge for him and the whole team. So once again, before Argentina's game, the big question is, will this team be able to handle it physically? So far, they've been managing, but just barely. After this one, right? Yeah. It's a tough marathon, and Messi keeps giving one masterclass after another. But at 39 years old, let's see if he can handle one more marathon.
Man, all things considered, right? With everything you've been studying, with everything you've seen in this World Cup, I'm not going to ask who you're rooting for, so I don't put you on the spot, although I think I can guess. But who do you think will win in the prediction markets? Spain seems to be the favorite. For you, is there a favorite for this match?
I think Spain is the favorite. I think Argentina is going to win. It's a big bet. I'm betting on Argentina because of everything we've talked about. Explain that. Argentina wasn't the favorite against England. They weren't World Cup favorites, but they're exceeding expectations each game. But like, Spain is in better physical shape, more solid, more secure in this World Cup, right? Not more solid, but more secure. Spain avoided any scares throughout each game, even against France. They entered that match and controlled it completely. But it's going to be a really cool clash because these are two teams that like to have the ball, the two teams with the most possession in this World Cup. So who's going to keep the ball? Will Spain be able to control Argentina? Will Argentina rely more on counterattacks and Messi's individual skills? Or can they find balance? So I think that, well, the fact is it's going to be a very interesting game. Anything can happen and we'll see.
Let's find out. Sunday, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Argentina and Spain, the 2026 World Cup final. If Argentina wins, they can match this achievement, right? This achievement by Brazil. Right? Since 1962, Brazil has been the only team to win back-to-back championships. They will win their fourth title if Argentina wins as well. And then, my friend, we'll spend the next 4 years thinking about what could happen in 2030. I'm not going to reveal who I'm rooting for either, but I admit that I would prefer Spain to win because of everything we've talked about. So be it. Thank you, Bernat.
Thanks, Fernando.